afternoon, garage. It's time to throw this thing on. Oh, wait a minute. Needs a little work first. In fact, this is in really bad shape. Not sure what I'm going to do with it. Not for sure if I'm going to replace most of it or part of it or maybe just repair it. Let's go back to the bench and look at it. Pretty destroyed. Alright, so there it is. So this is an airbox from like a 2.4 or a 2.7, or I think the 3 liter uses the same airbox. Things are a little bit different up top here for the Bosch K-Jetronic on the 2.7. So it has your regular butterfly, a sensor plate, and a fuel distributor here. So everything that's hooked up to this is really brittle. These lines are just kind of breaking in my hand. What happens here is this airbox is a cold start valve in the back which injects raw fuel in here, and sometimes if you get a backfire, what happens is it blows the bottom out of the airbox. So now what I've noticed here is that there's usually some screws that kind of lift up when that happens. Well, they're completely missing here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip all this off first, strip the sensor plate, the butterfly. I'm going to number these things. One thing to know about these is they have a different part number for each different intake runner, and they go into each in a different place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label the fuel lines here. They all look pretty good. And then I'm going to come and I'm going to inscribe a number into these so that I can easily get them back where they go onto the airbox here. But most of the concern is the airbox and whether or not we can fix the airbox. I know that airboxes are available. They're about $600-700 a piece. I'd rather not do that. I'd rather stick it back together. People say that this glue is really hard to adhere to, but we have some really fantastic adhesives nowadays. Should be able to locate something to stick this back together and, well, make it not leak. I also have a smoke machine, so I'm able to, pressurize this whole thing, kind of block it all off from the throttle body here, and see if I took care of all the leaks. This thing's a mess. Warm-up regulator is going to need some attention here, and like I said, all the lines that go to this are just absolutely brittle, and they're they're breaking off as I move this thing around. So, gonna try to not just disturb this too much, but of course, if we have to take the fuel distributor apart and repair that, which I've done successfully before, well, that's getting into a whole nother can of worms. So hopefully we don't have to do that. So I'm going to add what's called a toilet seat. See? Toilet seat. So we're going to put it right here, or rather right there. So I was kind of looking at the directions on how to do that. And I was kind of concerned about maybe there being a crack in here. And when I pulled it away, it appears the whole thing's kind of coming off. So I took all the screws out. And there it comes. Alright, there it is. Pretty much cracked out right there. Should be able to come up with some glue, and then we'll put some long screws in it and maybe some lock nuts from the back side. I think this can be repaired easily. Wow. Everything cleaned up really good. So now I'm going to be able to focus on this airbox here. I'm going to want to put this toilet seat in here backwards like that. I can probably even drill it from this side using that template now. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to elongate the holes. I'm going to use 832 screws. They're probably about an inch long, 3/4 or an inch long, something like that. Probably going to use wide washers on the back side. The adhesive I'm going to be using is this JB Weld plastic bonder. I'm going to try this at first, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up just a little bit. I'm going to put it back here, and then come back tomorrow. I guess it sets up in 15 minutes and sands in 30 minutes. So I didn't really need anything like that, but this is good to, what they say, 500 degrees or something like that. So it definitely has a temperature resistance, but definitely don't want any leaks occurring on this area. But I think the whole key to getting this to working correctly and not leaking is to have everything really clean. So when I took this apart, there was just grease all over the place, and I don't know how you could just, kind of just, maybe just make like a spot repair. You have to really disassemble the whole thing. Most of the flange is left on here, which is kind of good, except for right in this area. And I was thinking about maybe even making a little metal reinforcement piece, which attached to this thing, to really kind of, give us some strength right in this area, because that's where it's going to happen again. But you got to remember, we have the toilet seat now that's going to be able to open up and relieve the pressure. But you really want this to be nice and solid. So I'm going to do a glue test, see if that works, and I'll come back tomorrow and see if I can peel the glue off. I'm going to use a 2-inch hole saw, even though they recommend 2 1/8. This 2 1/8 is, well, just a bit oversized. I'll come back with a die grinder, make this fit really snug. I think it's really important to make sure this seals up well. So there's the plan. Really happy with everything. Cleaned up really nicely.
24 hours later.
Alright, about 24 hours now. It's like this glue dried. I put it back here. And I put it up front here, just to kind of do a test on this. And boy, it really set up really well. Kind of actually melted this plastic. I'm really not quite sure what this plastic is. This JB Weld plastic bonder did a really good job in gluing absolutely nothing, but it did kind of melt itself into this housing here, so I'm pretty happy with that. And I also put a little dab on there, on this tab right here, and you can see it, well, it's set up really good. And now I can't peel this off with my thumb or even lift it or anything like that. I think this is going to definitely be the glue to glue this up with. Alright, I want to talk about this toilet seat here for a few minutes. I did make a video on this, and I was kind of long-winded on it, and basically what I did was I described that I pulled some vacuum on this with my mouth, and it was actually leaking because the hinge point was set up a little bit differently than this one, but I was able to blow through it and put mild pressure on here, but when I put vacuum on it, boy, it really started sucking. So it was leaky, so what I did was I sent it back, and I got this one here. I put this sucker in my mouth, I pulled some vacuum on it, seems to be sealing now. So definitely want to check and make sure that this seat here is hitting the O-ring square, because, well, you don't want to really create a leak in here when you're trying to fix the leak. So that's about enough here. So here I have the template here. We're going to mark this, and then I'm actually going to take the fins off of here and mount this thing flush like I think it should be. I don't think this thing should be sitting right on top of the fins, and I really don't know how you get a good glue seal, especially with this there like that. I don't even know how you would get underneath it to make sure that it's kind of sealed all the way around if you've got these ribs in there. So it'll be kind of a two-step process here where I'll cut the hole saw, trim it out, and set this down in there, glue it in. Shouldn't be that difficult. Alright, that worked out pretty good. So I kind of put it in there, and boy, it fits kind of tight, but it looks like I could actually push it down in there. Now, the instructions here say to use a 2 1/8 hole saw. This was a 2-inch hole saw, and it seems to fit perfectly. I think I'm just going to have to take the die grinder and maybe just clean it up a little bit. But definitely don't follow these instructions, and size it down a little bit. Anyway, I'll die grind that down, and then we'll work on cutting these fins out so we can fit this thing flush. All right, there we go. So you can see it's fitting kind of below the surface now. It's actually flush with these things. So that sticks out considerably farther than just sitting flush with that surface. So happy with that. That's how it should work. All right, so this really turned out good, didn't it? Got the flapper valve installed, and looks like it fits nicely. This whole thing is really strong, and look at these glue joints here. They look pretty good. I think it's gonna hold. Yeah, actually, this thing's pretty darn rigid now. But you know, as far as this toilet seat goes, in hindsight, I really don't think I would have used one. What it is just kind of a band-aid actually to solve kind of an intake leak problem you might have or something like that, because usually when it goes lean, it starts backfiring. And really, Porsche has a provision because they have kind of a foam seal here, and you put the sensor plate housing on here, and it's actually designed to actually release some air in case of a backfire. So I don't really think I would do that again, but anyway, the glue worked really well. Set up hard, and man, this thing's good to go. Another thing I wanted to mention is this plastic bonder from JB Weld worked really well. You can see that I showed you that it kind of melted into the plastic a little bit. That was really kind of a good thing, and it was kind of porous, so it kind of expanded a little bit, which would be great for, I don't know, filling gaps or something. But anyway, I'm really happy with it. Hey, if you get anything out of this, give me a like, subscribe if you haven't, and I think next time we'll try to do some injectors.